disruptive.
Weird thing to happen.
Well, yes, folks, the news is true. Chrystia Freeland resigns from cabinet ahead of Ukraine envoy appointment. So I kind of jumped the wagon a bit when I thought that she was going to be gone from Parliament. But, of course, just like the last time when Chrystia Freeland resigned, remember that? She wrote the letter to Justin Trudeau. She was resigning from being the finance minister and being the deputy prime minister. She resigned on the day, the same day she was supposed to deliver the official budget of the country. She refused to do so. She decided to resign, wrote a letter to Justin Trudeau, throwing him under the bus. And then Chrystia Freeland still remained in office and became the transportation secretary. So it's such a bittersweet just disappointment to know that these heinous individuals that you think are going to go away just get shuffled to a different position. In this case, she's going to do ahead of a Ukraine envoy appointment, which, if you know about Chrystia Freeland's history, kind of fits in her direction, don't you think? Sadly. So, CTV News reporting, Transport and Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland announced Tuesday she is stepping down from cabinet and will not run in the next federal election. She will remain as an MP in the interim and will serve as Canada's new special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine, Prime Minister Mark Carney wrote in a letter posted to social media. Is she going to be the fundraiser for BlackRock and Vanguard? Turn Ukraine into this, cyber ultra AI utopia, mass surveillance. Is that the reconstruction phase she's looking forward to? Freeland's two portfolios are being divided between existing cabinet ministries. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is taking over internal trade, while government housing leader Stephen McKinnon is taking transportation. Both were sworn in at Rideau Hall Tuesday afternoon. I am not leaving to spend more time with my family or because the burden of elected office is too heavy to bear, Freeland wrote in her own letter posted to social media, alongside with a picture of her hugging Carney. Because let's not forget, Mark Carney is the godfather to one of her kids. I kid you not. For me and for my wonderful husband and children, public service has been a privilege and not a sacrifice. She said she made the decision with tremendous gratitude and a little sadness. Carney, meanwhile, complimented Freeland on her versatility, raw intelligence, and principled leadership. Yes, only her can laugh about locking up bank accounts and demonizing Canadians. Only her. Sources close to Freeland tell CTV News that discussions about her next move have been underway in the earnest since the start of the summer. They also say Freeland wanted to prioritize securing an internal trade deal by Canada, but that discussions have been more open since then. Sources also say that there were other possibilities presented to Freeland that did not interest her until this one. Freeland visited Ukraine last week with Canada ambassador to Ukraine, Natalia Simok. That's an interesting name. Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and former Newfoundland Labrador Premier Andrew Furey. Freeland is of Ukrainian descent and lived in both Ukraine and Russia during her 2 decades as a journalist. And source familiar with the new appointment tells CTV News Freeland will work directly with Carney as his representative and will work with Ukrainian leaders on a plan to rebuild the Ukrainian economy. Yeah, all that money that we shuffled in, all that money that they extract from Canadians, that they printed off so much more that our inflation is rampant. Yeah, that money. When they're buying properties all around the world, when we know that there's money laundering afoot, when we know that Zelensky is guilty himself, is a criminal. for taking that money and embezzling it and not using it towards Ukrainian defense, not using it for this for this war. And we know how manufactured this whole aggression is. We know about the 2014 Maidan coup. We know about Victoria Nuland, Jake Sullivan, people at the at NATO that were intervening to try to topple the Ukrainian government to install this puppet and train with neo-Nazis to attack Russia. We know how manufactured all this is. And this has been the lifelong goal of someone like Chrystia Freeland. That's why when she was deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau, she was the vocal advocate, was the head leader into the support of Ukraine. Justin Trudeau may be screaming at the top of his lungs about it, but it was really her decision. It was really her that was pushing Canada into this direction. And unfortunately, we're still being pushed in this direction, even though majority of the country does not agree to continue on this war. They know how catastrophic it is. They know how damaging it is. They know that what's happening over there is not what we're being told here. That the average age of a Ukrainian army personnel is now 14 years old or 60, because all the ages in between have been slaughtered off. And Mark Carney, instead of looking at that and going, oh, we should actually come to a peace agreement, which is what I thought Trump was going to do, but it turns out that was wrong. Mark Carney went to Kiev with Zelensky and discussed putting Canadian troops on the front lines of that war. So this was the whole proposal, that Canada, the United States, the European nations, NATO, they all want to coordinate to attack Russia again. They want another Cold War. They want to attack Russia. They thought they could use Ukraine as the pawn, as the proxy to do it themselves. But as we're seeing, more and more Ukrainians are dying. They're not letting go of this war. They're not saying that we should stop it. They're amplifying it. They're putting more and more people into this meat grinder. It's absolutely horrific. I find it funny with this too. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who has developed a close relationship with Freeland in the last several years, was supportive of the move. She's a friend. I talk to her almost daily, Ford told reporters. She's going to do a great job over in Ukraine, and I support her all the way. Good God. Good God. Again, it's a club. You and I ain't in it. Doug Ford is no different than the Federal Liberal Party. For anyone that thinks that, oh, but he's a progressive conservative, Ford Nation. That doesn't mean squat. That doesn't mean squat. He's part of the same club. So here's the official statement and address from the Prime Minister himself. It says, as she takes the direction to step down from the ministry, I would like to thank Chrystia Freeland for her extraordinary service in the cabinet of Canada's federal government over the past decade. Chrystia's versatility, raw intelligence, and principled leadership have served Canadians with distinction through extraordinary challenges and changes. Her leadership has helped to secure historic trade negotiations, to guide the response to a global pandemic, to complete early learning and child care agreements across Canada, and most recently to remove all federal barriers to internal trade, all while strongly representing her constituents as the Member of Parliament for University Rosedale. I have asked Chrystia to serve as Canada's new special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine, in addition to her responsibilities as the Member of Parliament. Jeez. Like, it's just, again, you think they're going away. You think that, oh, they're stepping down. That's a good thing. But they're just getting reassigned. That's all this is. They're just shuffling people around. Doesn't actually mean that they're going away and they're going to take the time to do some self-reflecting and realize how garbage they are inside. No. They're just going to move them to a different direction. Oh, you were the deputy prime minister? You resigned from Justin Trudeau? Okay, well, under Mark Carney, you're now the transportation secretary. Oh, well, you want to resign from that? Okay, we'll put you in a position to reconstruct Ukraine. What does that have to do with Canada? I'm just saying, what does that have to do with Canada? As a former G7 Minister of Finance, Foreign Affairs, and International Trade with deep relations and understanding of Ukraine and its economy, Chrystia is truly uniquely positioned for this timely and essential work towards a better future for Ukrainians and peace in Europe. Thank you, Chrystia, for your depiction and many contributions to Canada, friendship, and continued partnership. Yeah, if you look at the history of Chrystia Freeland, she's built to do that role. She's built to do that role. So people are, in Parliament are speaking about this. Here's Pierre Poilievre asked by one of the journalists, how do you think her legacy is going to be, Chrystia Freeland? Because Chrystia Freeland, again, she was the deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau. She was the right-hand lady when Pierre Poilievre was dealing with Justin Trudeau. And now she's stepping down to reconstruct Ukraine. So here's what he said about it.
Mr. Poilievre, what will Chrystia Freeland's legacy be, in your view?
That's a good question. I think it was that she resigned rather than introduce a $62 billion deficit. I think she said the Liberals were trying to force her to introduce a deficit of $62 billion. And she said, this is irresponsible, it is out of control, and it will cause massive inflation. And of course, that deficit went ahead anyway, and now it's even bigger. She's probably trying to get out of town and as far away as possible before this disastrous November budget comes, and I don't blame her.
So that's going to be her legacy. That she resigned the first time because she didn't want to deliver a budget that was absolutely wrecking the Canadian economy, that this large deficit was now being a burden to this country. She didn't want to release that. She didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. So she resigned at that point, got reelected back in. Mark Carney reassigned her to being the transportation minister and also the minister of internal trade when Trump's tariffs came in and the trade war that's still ongoing, that we don't even know what the situation is at this point. Are they talking? Are they not talking? What the hell's going on? Anyway, then now Chrystia Freeland, I feel like, again, because she doesn't want to own her wrongdoings, she doesn't want to be held responsible for this party and how disastrous it is, how the Liberal Party completely screwed Canada for over a decade. She's now trying to get away from it as much as possible and now resorting to a foreign country because she wants nothing to do with Mark Carney and the Liberal catastrophe. And Pierre Poilievre says, I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Why would I want to be associated with a party that is doing wrong things, that is hurting this country? But Chrystia Freeland is no innocent person. Like, Chrystia Freeland is part of the problem. So that's why I find it hilarious that she's trying to make herself innocent. Like, I didn't do anything. I just trying to do my job. It was Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. No, it was also you. It was also you. You're responsible for a lot of the harm you've done to this country. You're responsible personally. And I'm going to show you a bit of the, lackluster kind of legacy that Chrystia Freeland had for this country in her greatest hits. For example, I'm not sure many people remember this, but Chrystia Freeland was good friends with George Soros. In fact, Chrystia Freeland wrote a bunch of biographies dedicated to George Soros. And she was invited to do this interview in the UK. And as this guy Richard points out, Western mainstream media constantly flames the conflict in Ukraine as unprovoked. Yet here's Canada's former Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, openly praising George Soros' foundation, bragging about its decades-long operations again across Eastern Europe and its success to outright brainwashing Ukrainians. Chrystia Freeland's great-grandfather was a propagandist for the Nazis. That is part of her history. And now here she is as a journalist with one of the most heinous agitators to human civilization, honoring and congratulating him, and he is openly stating that his project was to brainwash and manipulate the Ukraine country. No one ever talks about this. No one ever talks about this. They just want you to focus on Russia came in, and that's it. That's why Russia's so bad. Because they came in with the tanks and rolled in, and that's what caused the war. They don't want to tell you the decades-long attribution that built up to this war. And here's him explaining it.
Was that, George, civil society in action? You've been working on helping to build civil society, trying to build it, often frustrated in the former Soviet Union, in the Soviet Union. I know I first met you in Ukraine in 1990 when you began those efforts. There were many years, I think, when it seemed it was all useless. Does it say something to you, teach you something about open society, civil society building?
Well, yes, because basically, in many ways, I set up the foundation in Ukraine in 1990, which was 2 years before the independence of Ukraine. That was it was an offshoot of the foundation in Russia. I set up a cultural initiative foundation in the Soviet Union in 1987, and then we built this branch in Ukraine in 1990, the foundation. One of the things that the foundation did gave a lot of scholarships and supported civil society, and the maturity of civil society 25 years later is to a large extent the work of the foundation.
Yeah, and I will just offer my own personal.
Civil society 25 years later was thanks to me. Does it look civil over there now? Does it look civil? I mean, we're having wars left, right, and center. We're having internal civil wars. We're angry at each other. We're vilifying each other. Do you think it looks civil now? 25 years later? Oh, because the foundation gave scholarship. Yeah, that's what it was. It was just scholarships. We just taught some people, okay? You know, I have no contribution to the complete dismantling of Eastern European society. I have no contributions to invoking my powers against Ukraine to use them for any means necessary. I have nothing to do with that. That's him admitting this. And Chrystia Freeland, who's supposed to be this thought-provoking journalist, she's not going to question it. She's not going to question it because she knows she wants to be part of this club. She wants to be part of Parliament. She wants to, form alliance with the WEF. She's a contributor to the World Economic Forum. You can't do that if you're actually honest and have integrity and actually do journalistic ethics to question this guy. So, if I was in that position, I'd be saying, what the hell are you talking about? You founded this institution telling me that it's only scholarships, and you're saying 25 years later, oh, things are civil. Are you freaking kidding me?
Testimony here. It's actually amazing in Ukraine. The new Ukrainian government, the new Ukrainian leadership, everyone who I know in that group has been touched somehow by open society and by Georgia, literally. Either people personally got a scholarship or someone, their wife got a scholarship. It's a really remarkable thing.
It's really remarkable. It's remarkable that a comedian on television who plays the piano with his privates is the leader of Ukraine. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. And all these people just randomly got scholarships, and, you know, we taught them certain things. You know, don't look beyond that. Don't question that. I just think it's wonderful. So that's one of the lovely things about Chrystia Freeland. Here's another take. When she actually been a part of this country. Here's Chrystia Freeland when she laughed about bank accounts being frozen on the Freedom Convoy. And not just the Freedom Convoy itself, but any supporter of the Freedom Convoy. Even if you weren't at the event causing any ruckus in Ottawa, if you supported this cause, you were demonized, an awful Canadian, and had to lose access to your own finances. And she laughed about this. She encouraged this. She wrote to TD. Remember those awful notes? The poorly handwriting that Chrystia Freeland wrote to the president of TD Bank? You had to go after people's bank accounts? Well, here's her laughing about this.
In August 2020, Freeland became finance minister. She helped Trudeau navigate the fallout of COVID and critics who blasted government overreach.
Accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen.
Protesters criticized government mandates, and some addressed Freeland directly.
An Alberta man is seen shouting profanities at the Deputy Prime Minister.
Doing in Alberta, you traitor.
In 2022, Freeland testified in the Emergencies Act inquiry.
Accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen. I had at that moment a very profound duty to Canadians. I'm surprised that I'm getting emotional, but I'm the finance minister. I'm the deputy prime minister. I have to protect Canadians. Accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen.
And with that, speculation of a potential leadership run for Freeland in the near future.
He had to protect Canadians. And how do you protect Canadians? By going after Canadians. You protect the country by going after its civilians. That doesn't sound like a healthy democratic process. That sounds like what's the word? Totalitarianism or fascism. That sounds like something, 1940s, 30s Germany would have been doing. That sounds like Mussolini. That sounds like Stalin. I'm trying to protect you by doing what? Going after your bank accounts. Because I don't trust you. I don't trust you using your money and being a grown person, making your own decisions and contributing to a certain cause that you agree with. I don't like that. I'm protecting Canada. And she thought she was doing great work. That's why she cried about that. Oh, I'm getting so emotional. I thought I'm doing good work. This is definitely going to grant me leadership once, Justin Trudeau finally gets out. But then what happened? She resigned first. She resigned the day that she was supposed to deliver a disappointing budget, that the country was going backwards, that we had a huge deficit. She immediately resigned to avoid telling Canadians that. This is how horrendous this woman is. Here's Chris Erickson. Remember when Chrystia Freeland laughed about freezing the bank accounts of Canadians during the Freedom Convoy? How is she still in power?
So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay, so the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen.
So you're
So she went after many people. She went after the people that were at Ottawa at the event. She went after the people that were contributing through GoFundMe. And she went after people that had cryptocurrencies that were donating. But this is her way of helping Canada, according to her, according to her testimony. This is me just trying to help Canadians. I'm defending you guys. I'm the Deputy Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and the Transportation Secretary. I'm trying to help you guys. Was it really helping us, or was it really helping you? Were you just trying to pave the way and show your globalist handlers that you're capable of totalitarian control? Because here we are in 2025, you know, we're years after the Freedom Convoy, the invocation of the Emergency Powers Act, that hasn't been used since wartime. And we're stepping closer and closer into the state of having digital ID, having, you know, the government, having law enforcement turn off your bank account like a light switch. We're more and more ever in that direction in 2025 because of stuff like this. And because the news media kind of went along with this. They went along with this because they're co-opted by the government to spread this kind of malice propaganda that all the people at the Freedom Con, they're a bunch of, you know, domestic terrorists, and they were Nazis, and one of them had a swastika flag that we can't even look into. But I heard from a guy who saw the photograph, and they could tell you they're a bunch of white supremacists. They're trying to scare people into submission. That's what this is, scaring people into submission. Hey, you're going to lose access to your finances until you get into line. That's how she's protecting Canada, protecting Canadians, by going against them, by going against their rights and freedoms. Here's another one to point out. This was after the Canadian Parliament applauded a Ukrainian Nazi twice in the House of Commons. Remember that? All Parliament stood up twice to applaud a Nazi. Twice. And the whole world saw this because it was captured on a live feed, much like a lot of House of Commons, lot like Question Period. It's captured right on a live feed directly on camera. The whole entire House applauded this Nazi twice, and they tried to cover it up. Justin Trudeau said that it was Russian misinformation. They were trying to tell people, we didn't know in advance who this guy was. We should have looked into some research and realized this guy was part of the SS Waffen. We should have looked into the fact that this guy was smuggled into this country, which we know in Canada throughout history. We have smuggled a bunch of Nazis into the country, much like the United States, under Operation Paperclip. We did here in Canada. We granted citizenship, direct citizenship, for a bunch of Nazi war criminals that killed a bunch of people because, they're anti-communist. So we're going to bring them here. We're going to bring these hideous scumbags that murdered people in mass droves. We're going to bring them here and grant them citizenship. And here's Chrystia Freeland having to cover up this. And you can tell she's nervous. Look at Chrystia Freeland's nervous hand squeezing when she's asked about investigating Canadians who fought alongside Nazis. So that's when the Ottawa Citizen wrote up an article about how there was a demand, there was a call for the release of a bunch of names of all the individuals that came into Canada, that got smuggled into this country, that were part of Nazi coalitions. And because the word got out, because, you applied to a Nazi twice, people got curious. They started doing research. So Chrystia Freeland then has to do damage control, and she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to do because obviously the Liberal Party completely screwed up that one, and people know about her history. They know that her family is part of Nazi collaboration. They know this. So she's nervous about it.
There are calls by B'nai B'rith to reopen a report by the Deschênes Commission so that Canadians can know how many veterans who fought with the Nazis are here in our country. Will the government do so, and what is your response to that?
I think, let me just start by reiterating, and I don't think it can be said too many times, how hurtful for so many people in Canada and around the world what happened was and has been and continues to be. As MPs, in our capacity as MPs, it's important for appropriate next steps in the House to be taken, and I think that is our immediate focus. And as
I think your Kamala Harris moment.
We're going to be very thoughtful about any further steps that need to be taken.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Like, the reporter asked a simple question. Are you guys going to investigate and look into veterans that you brought into the country that fought alongside with Nazis? Simple question. Well, let me just reiterate this. Just want to say to myself and to the members of Parliament and people around the world and in Canada, trying to do this word salad to buy out time because they know they screwed up. So those are the many moments. There's a lot more I could be, describing Chrystia Freeland, but there's just a long list of just how heinous this woman is for the country of Canada, and for her to step down, which now I gotta use in quotations because we know that she's not officially leaving politics. She's just getting reassigned like usual. None of these people ever leave office. They just get reassigned. Now she's going to be the special envoy to reconstructing Ukraine. Well, it's good that she's focusing away from Canada, but my worrisome is, reconstructing Ukraine. It sounds like she's going to start, demanding more money. She's going to talk directly to Mark Carney and say, those billions of dollars that we donate to Ukraine, yeah, we're going to need more. We're going to need more. We're going to rebuild a country that we purposely intended to destroy to go after Russia in this manufactured war. We're going to need more money to rebuild it. In the words of Zelensky, give us a credit. Give us a credit. If you don't have the money, give us credit. But Chrystia Freeland, we will never, ever forget you. And we will never, ever forget heinous moments like that.